guys, and welcome back to another episode of Sharing Sauce with Sham. Today we have the wonderful Coach Lee with us. She is a productivity and accountability coach, and she's going to share her journey of entrepreneurship with us, where she's going to take us all the way back to the beginning and then up until today so you guys can learn what offer she has and how you guys as entrepreneurs can work with her. Welcome Coach Lee. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
um,
for having me.
yes. So I've been following you online for a little while, so I was like, I gotta really talk to her and see. So I was so glad that you were like, I would like to be on the podcast, because I was like, I really want to see what she has going on and how she can help everybody. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, so today we're gonna get started and go all the way back. I want to figure out like who you were and what you were doing. Well, not really who you were, but what you were doing before you got into this online space. How did you get here?
So if we go back. So originally I got into like the online space through Beachbody, well, formerly Beachbody, now Body. Like it's a health and wellness. So I was doing online health and wellness coaching with them. So I finally, that's what made me get an Instagram and kind of start showing up on Instagram and showing up on the online space initially. But then through that, it was kind of like, I would realize that, because really, even with health coaching, it's mindset. Like you're doing more than just coaching them on the food and the workouts. And with that, like I wasn't designing the workouts or anything, but kind of through that process, people were like, you're so encouraging, you're so motivated, like you should be a coach, like you should be a life coach, like you're doing more than just that. But I'm a criminal defense attorney by day, and I was like, child, who got time for that? Like,
It's okay.
no, ma'am, no, sir, no, thank you. Like, I love my job, I'm not trying to do nothing else. But then the pandemic happened, and thankfully, like I didn't lose my job or anything, but we were sent home, like criminal defense attorney, courthouse is shut down, we're not doing trials. So we were working from home, and our job was pretty much like, it's no reason for you to be logged in from 8 to 5, because if you can get your, like, if you're a night person, because now everyone, like, I don't have kids or anything, but people who do have their kids, like their kids are home, so they might not be able to focus. So pretty much it was like, as long as you get your work done, I don't care when you log onto the computer to get it done. Okay. I'm a morning person, so I was still logging on early, but come like lunchtime or so, I'm like, okay, no one's distracting me, so I'm getting so much work done. And it was only so many like shows I can watch on Netflix, books, podcasts, puzzles I can do, walks I can go on, workouts, like all the things. Like this was early, like literally March, like early pandemic. Okay. And so lots of people saying, you're so motivated, you're so encouraged, and started coming back to me. So I started looking up life coaching, found the class, like a training that I was wanting to do, made it less than halfway through the first video, and was like, oh, I see.
I like this.
So that's kind of how I transition, like from that. Like I still do the body workouts, and I still like I'm active with them as a coach, but I really do more of like the life coaching side, the productivity and accountability coaching side. So that's how I started in the online space and kind of got to where I am now with it.
Okay. So basically, once you came home and you learned how productive you could be, then you were like, okay, cool. I can show people how they can be productive and have a 9 to 5 and be an entrepreneur as well. So I love that for you that you got into the space that way. So, so when you were, so how'd you narrow it down to like really like, well, who do you work with? That's what I would say. Who do you work with?
So I guess to kind of answer like the half question you asked and then both, it kind of, because we were talking about how motivating and encouraging, the question they always kind of asked me was like, how do you get all this stuff done? And so like, I knew I didn't want to be like a life coach, but I also didn't know what I wanted to do, like what title I wanted to give myself. So like when I first started out, it was like life and accountability coach, because I knew accountability was like a big thing to me. But then realizing that people don't really know how to get things done. Like to me, it's, I can do it in my sleep. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you don't know how to get stuff done? Like, it's easy. So then that's kind of how I got into the productivity side of it. So in terms of like who I help, number one, everybody needs to be more accountable, be more productive, and get things done. But then I realized that so often it's like women, we put ourselves on the back burner. So like I said, I don't have kids or anything like that. But once you start having these additional roles like family, kids, we start continuing to push ourselves back further and further, like work, business, kids, family, friends, like everything else becomes a priority over us. So really I work with primarily like women in corporate, entrepreneurs, or just trying to figure out this thing called adulting, essentially find that hidden time of their day. time that they can pour back into themselves, their goals, their life purpose, their passions, so that they're fueling themselves, so that they see that once they fuel themselves, all the things that you're doing for other people will actually have more meaning, because you're taking care of self first and you feel fulfilled, so you feel better showing up and being and doing for other people.
Oh, yes, I love that because I definitely am a victim of pushing myself all the way back. And I'm really trying to be better at that, especially because my oldest two kids, they'll be 22 in February, and my youngest is 12. So I'm like, I feel bad a little bit. Like, okay, now I'm trying to really push myself forward because before, like, everything was all about them, right? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do any, like, I was just known as their mom. That's it. Like, I didn't have a life. Like, I'm going from this sport to that sport to this dance thing to that school play to, and I'm like, okay, I gotta find an identity because these kids gonna leave me. And I
Right.
gotta take, right, like, and I gotta take my focus back and really try to chase my dreams and go after things that I'm trying to accomplish too before I get too old. So I'm like, yeah, it's time for me. So I love that. Those are the target. That's the target audience for you because I think so many mothers out there, like, we always push ourselves all the way to the back, girl. So yeah, that is
Yeah.
great. And so how do you stay so productive?
I'm a list person. I've always been a list person. I thrive on structure. When things start like pivoting and adjusting, that's honestly where I struggle. Like, I'm a creature of habit. Like, generally
Mhm.
speaking, if you look at my like schedule, my to-do list, it's the same every week. Now,
Okay.
what the things like, because like since I work full time and then have the business, like generally speaking, like before this, I've had my coaching call, I've worked out, I've meal prepped, I've washed dishes, and now the rest of the day is mine to like work on my business. So like I thrive on structure, but I'm also very much a list person. Like, you can't see my desk, but if you could, like, my calendar is in front of me. I make a to-do list. I thrive. I just thrive on structure. So I think for me, it's going back to like knowing myself, and then knowing myself, learning and realizing that structure is a big thing for me. And so I need to have these lists to know what I need to do when, my calendar, like all of that.
Yeah. And so in being, because you're super organized like that, right? So when you're coaching people, like, like, I'm a disorganized mess, I like to say, right? Like, I know what I need to do every day and I have it on my calendar, but sometimes I look at that calendar, girl, and I be like, yeah, I'm not about to do that right now. So like, what tips can you give people who are kind of like me, a disorganized mess, as far as staying on track with those lists and
I would say
really.
like you have to find what works for you, because I'm a mix of pen and paper, but I also use like Asana for my to-do list. So like I get it out of my head onto paper, and then once it's on paper, I put it digitally. So like with Asana, like it syncs with my phone. I can use it on the computer. Like I can have it on my work computer. Um, but it's figuring out what works for you. So like, for example, you put stuff on the calendar so you know what you have to do. But it's possible that when you get to that task, the reason you don't want to do it is because you're not working with your body. And by that I mean knowing if you're more of a morning person or an evening person or a night owl, and kind of scheduling your tasks during that time. I get that we're gonna have to work during times where, like, I'm a morning person, so I get up at 2:30 in the morning. I know y'all gonna look at me crazy, but I know I'm a morning person, but I also go to bed like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So it's not like I'm getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and staying up till 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
And because of like, I know that I'm a morning person, I try to get my heavy thinking stuff out of the way early in the morning, whether that be me getting up to work my business before I go to work, or when I get to work, how I kind of structure my day at work, given I'm an attorney, so I have to go to court and stuff, but like I still think best in the morning. So figuring out how I can get some of those heavy thinking tasks done. And then even with that, knowing what it is that energizes you, so that when you hit a slump, or if you have to work at a time that typically isn't your peak time, you can still work. Like for me, I take a walk in the middle of the day at work, and that resets my mind so that when I come back from
Mm.
lunch, I can focus. Like I have like this 2 hour break. I don't want to say break, this 2 hour gap in the middle of the day, like the 2 to 3:30-ish time. Like,
Mhm.
even though I'm a morning person, like that's a good focus time for me. So like I also, other heavy thinking tasks for work, I get them done during that time. Given
Okay.
there are things that we have to do when those times aren't right at the same time. So clearly I still have to work till 5 o'clock. So in the evening, I do a lot more of my like list making things that I can do, like literally like with my eyes closed. that don't require a lot of brain power. They're still moving me forward at work because there are things that need to be done, but I'm not using my peak energy to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, you have to get to know yourself. Figuring out, are you a morning person? Are you a night owl? Like, when do you work best? Like, when do you find that you have the best focus? Because it might be possible that the reason you're saying, I don't want to do this task now, is because you're trying to potentially do a heavy thinking task in a time that you're in a slump. And so you're like, I know I need to get it done, but I don't feel like it. So it's best to like listen to your body, learn your body, and kind of just figure out, like, when do I work best? Like, when do I typically naturally, like, without caffeine, without all of that stuff, have natural energy? Like, when I wake up at 2:30, like, I wake up thinking, like, sometimes people are like, yo, like, it's 2:30, like, how you thinking about this stuff already? But like, my brain, like, I'm a natural morning person. Like, I don't drink coffee. This is me. I have had pre-workout because I worked out this morning, but like, even without pre-workout, like, I'm high energy in the morning, like, natural.
Yeah. And I love that you said that too. Because I think for a lot of people, because I know for myself, I work better like late night, early morning myself. But like with the things I have to do for the kids, it's like I can't really, like, you know what I mean? Like when I was full-time entrepreneur and I didn't have a 9 to 5, it was a lot easier because I would like break nights, because when the world is quiet, my brain works. Like no phones, no interruptions. Like I can really work my best. So that is great that you pointed that out, because I think a lot of us, we probably know that, but we don't think about, like, maybe we need to rework our schedule during the day so we can get to bed a little earlier. And if you do work best at those times when the world is quiet, if you get up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the world is going to be quiet till about 6 or 7. Right. So
Nobody looking for me at that time. like 6 or so, because people are starting to get up and get ready for work, but nobody, who checking for me?
Yeah. And I love that. That is a great tip for the people. So in your coaching, how do you keep people accountable to those productivity tasks that they're setting for themselves?
So the reason I like one-on-one coaching, and the reason that I do one-on-one coaching, is because everybody is individual. Just like we were just talking about, like, when do you work best? When do you work, things like that. So what one person might need to hold them accountable might not be what another person needs to hold them accountable. So understanding that to figure out how to best be accountable and hold them accountable. So for example, like, I had a consult call, like essentially like a sales call earlier this week, and the girl was asking, like, how do you, basically she was trying to figure out like how my coaching works and like what do I do. And so we were like getting to know her. She was kind of like, I need somebody who's like on my neck, who's like nagging me and checking in with me every day. So she's like, is that something you can do? And I'm like, yeah, we can set up to where we have not necessarily daily calls, but like daily like text message check-ins, because you get access to me throughout the week. So if it's like you need to make sure that you're up every morning, I get up at 2:30. So generally speaking, ain't none of my clients gonna beat me up. So
Right.
I can text them in the morning, or, with different apps, like making sure it's scheduled so that I don't forget, like in case I get busy, I didn't forget to check in with them. But I'm like, yeah, we can set up business. She's like, I need to know, like, what is something that I can do, like, if I don't do it. I'm like, well, what's something that you really like? And she's like, I have my TV in my room. I really like watching TV. I really like social media. And I'm like, and she had mentioned something about like saving money or with her money. I'm like, we can make you donate money to a charity that you can't stand. And she's like, well, I'm about my money. Like that might actually work. So we were just kind of like throwing out ideas of what potentially that can look like. So I say, like, in terms of keeping them accountable, like, they get access to me throughout the week. And if I know that there's a specific theme based off our call that we had that week that's coming up in the next week, like, one of my clients was an attorney as well, and she was like, when I get in trial, I just kind of like forget about everything else. So we kind of like made a plan of like, okay, you're going into trial this week. How can we set yourself up so that if you forget about the rest of the world, everything is already like in place that can either run on your own, like, your assistant knows to do these things, like your wife knows, like everything in the other areas are kind of naturally taking care of themselves because you prepared for it. So really it's about understanding their needs and what it is they're looking for, and then crafting a plan to help them be accountable, whether that be them doing the work or me also checking in with them, like, hey, you said you were going to do this, did you? And then understanding when things are like an excuse or like a true reason, because sometimes given things are going to come up, but are you letting things come up all the time, or was this truly like we made a plan. This one nowhere on the plan, and I wasn't 100% sure how to pivot for this one. So I would say
Right.
it's kind of like getting to know them and then crafting a plan that's specific to them.
Okay. And my next question was going to be like, how do you kind of differentiate yourself from the other productivity coaches in this market? And I think you kind of answered that because you're creating custom plans for everybody. You're not like one size fits all, would you say, right?
Yeah, because everything doesn't work for everybody. And me figuring out what works for me was trial and error. Like even figuring out like, okay, this thing works good for my home life, but not so much for work life. And not trying to make everything have to be the same in every area of life.
Right, right. And so, what do you find most challenging when you're working with people on their productivity?
Sometimes it's them in the sense of like, if you're not willing to be honest with yourself, then you can't give me the honest answer. So I can't sometimes help you. And like, I'm not have nothing against people being stubborn because I'm stubborn. Like when I'm set in my ways and I don't want to change. Like I said earlier, I'm a creature of habit. So when things start happening too quick, I'm like, but. So I get that, and change is uncomfortable and all of that as well. So I think sometimes it's they're stuck in their ways, and it's like I know I need to change, but basically I'm scared to change, or we put this plan in place for how I'm going to check in with them or how I'm going to do this stuff, and then they don't respond. Like, yeah, you show up for the weekly calls, but we have these midweek check-ins or these daily check-ins that you're asking me, make sure that you're up. Like, so I send you a message, but you don't respond to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest struggle that I struggle with is also the client, like them not implementing or them not doing the follow through on their end, because it's only so much I can do to hold you accountable. If I'm showing up and doing what we agreed to,
Mm-hmm.
it's
That's
a
it.
relationship.
Right. The rest falls on you. And
Right.
I think a lot of times people are, I don't know if you agree, but I think people are afraid, right? I don't think it's nothing coming up for us all the time and getting in our way. I think sometimes people are literally afraid to become the person they say they want to become,
Yeah.
you know?
Or they
And
sometimes have this idea of it, and then the reality doesn't fit the idea.
right, right. Because I think it's really a lot to do too with social media. Like it makes people feel like everything is easy, right? But change is hard anyway. We all know that. And the older you get, it's even more harder to change because you're stuck in your ways, like you were saying. But um when you see that hard work you got to put in to become the person you want to be, then people are like, I don't know. I don't think I really, I don't think I really want to be her that bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah. Um, and on the flip side of that, we talked about like what you find most challenging. Like, what do you find the most rewarding when working with your clients?
The ones who come in like truly ready to change and do the work. Like I remember one client, we implemented, like we created a schedule for her. Like I think we met over the weekend. And so like 48, like literally 48 hours later, like we met on the weekend, like Monday she came to work, like with the schedule, pretty much like telling her assistant, this is gonna be my new plan of action. And the thought is that change takes time.
Right.
She came in and she was like, girl, because like part
She's
of
ready.
right, executed. And part of her thing was like she wanted to have that downtime at work. So essentially it was like one of the things she struggled with was staying late to work, but we talked at like 8, 9 o'clock. So in her schedule that we built, we left leaving work at 6 o'clock in the schedule because she owns the firm. So the firm shuts down at 5. So the assistants and stuff are gone at that point. So she would still have an hour at work where no one was there to get some things done. That first week, she was like, girl, I've been leaving at 5, 4:45. I'm like, wait, we said 6 o'clock was okay. You okay? So I think the most rewarding is seeing people come in and even surprising me, but also surprising themselves. Like, I thought this was going to be so hard, but it was so easy to implement this. And then me being surprised, like, we created a plan to where we were going to get you to leaving at 5 o'clock, but you came in and you already started leaving at 5 o'clock. Like,
Right. Like,
okay.
girl, you messing up my plan. You are you skipping steps. Oh,
But I
that's
think,
awesome.
but even with that, like she was still able to stick with it. It wasn't just that she made the change and she reverted right back. She
Right.
stuck with it.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's a blessing. The clients that really execute, girl, they is just like it is such a great feeling because you just like Yes, like all you had to do is do this. I'm so glad you showed up for yourself, right? Because
Exactly.
this is all stuff you said you wanted. So yeah, I love that. Um, those rewarding, well, the clients that are most rewarding are the ones that are actually coming in and executing on your processes, because that shows you that your processes are really working. That's what I always tell people, like, this is a win for me and you. It's showing
Right.
that this process doesn't just work for me. You can implement this same process and get to where you want to be as well. So I love that. So what are some of your goals over the next few years for growing this business into what you see it becoming for yourself?
I want to do more speaking because I love one-on-one.
Mhm.
And so like, everybody, I don't know if even in the VA world, if it's a thing as well, like push group coaching, push these group programs. And I see nothing wrong with them. I don't want to say it doesn't work for everybody, because depending on your coaching model or your business style, it can very much be a thing. But I love
Mhm.
the customization that I can get with one-on-one. And at this stage, I can't visualize what creating a group program would be that would work and make everybody be able to do all the things. But I
Mhm.
also know that my phrase, like, I'm inspired to impact, to make a bigger impact, because I don't have a desire to leave my 9 to 5. Like, I love being an attorney, which is why when people
Mhm.
first started saying like you should be a coach, I'm like, I love this. Like, I'm not doing this, like, I do this because I truly love it.
Mhm.
So like, creating scalability would mean like speaking to me, because more people at one time can hear it. And then,
Mhm.
because sometimes, like we were just talking about, sometimes people just need to hear it to take action. Like, it doesn't
Right.
always have to be like truly investing with me and working with me one-on-one to make the change.
Mhm.
It can be hearing it and then taking action. Like, I wrote a
Yeah.
book and we're in the process of like doing the edits and stuff on it to get it like published. But
Mhm.
so like being able to reach more of the masses so that they can start taking and making changes. And then maybe they still do need to work with me, but it might be in a smaller thing. Like, okay, you told me these things, I heard you speak about this, or I read the book about this, and I've started to do these things, but like, I just need like one session, like a single session, to where
Mhm.
we kind of like talk about creating a game plan to go execute, so that I can have more impact, because I know that as a full-time attorney, my hours and my capacity are also going to be limited in that regard if I don't desire to leave my job. So I think the growing and scaling is going to be being able to be on bigger platforms, getting out there more, so that more people can hear it, to know that it's possible, and then start making the changes in that way. And then, if you work with me or not, like, you made the change, what I said impacted you enough to make change and it worked for you, I'm
Right.
happy.
Right. Right. And I love that you talked about that group coaching, because I fell victim to that a little bit, because when I first started coaching, like, the one-on-ones was it for me, right? But the one-on-ones can become a little draining, as far as some of your clients think you're a psychiatrist and a therapist, and and I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't take nobody else's problems today. But getting into the group coaching space, I found that the way that I can't coach one way. So it's like I'm still coaching people outside of that, right? Like, they're hitting me up on Slack, like, I didn't really understand that, because people are too afraid to speak up during the sessions. And so this year I went back to the one-on-one model, and I'm really pushing that. So I'm glad that other coaches are seeing, like, it's great for scalability, right? But are your clients really being affected the way they need to be? Because they can't learn that way, right? They're
Right.
not learning the way that you're teaching in that broad space. So yeah, so that's really good that other people are seeing that that's just not the way to go, just because it's what everybody is saying.
Right. And then
You
and
got to
then
do
maybe
what works for you.
some kind of hybrid approach that works into the middle, where maybe you have some, and maybe that's kind of where I'm thinking, but I still don't know what that's gonna look like. Like, maybe to where there are like recorded modules, but you still get one-on-one access. Almost like, instead of us talking about the thing in the session, you heard about it and you come to the session and ask the questions that we implemented together. So maybe like less
Yeah.
face time, but more implementation work or something. Like, I'm not really sure fully what it's gonna look like, but that's my initial thought, is like getting my voice out there more, like speaking more, being able to be heard and seen by more people, so that they can start taking that action initially to get to there.
Yeah, and that's because your coaching is so, like you said, everybody needs productivity and accountability coaching, right? So it's like you can come on, you can work with virtual assistant clients, you can work with, you know what I mean, OBMs, you can work with web design. Like, you got so much, a broad spectrum that you can show up to online. So I think that's really good. So you can really get your voice heard in all these different arenas. Even the corporate space, right? Like
Right.
everybody in corporate needs some type of, when I was just a manager in corporate, like we needed, some productivity, because it's like they pull you from this meeting to that meeting to this meeting to that meeting. And then it's 5 o'clock and you like, I didn't do nothing all day. I was in meetings and half the meetings is pointless. Okay. Like
Yeah,
when you
I
reach
just
that
had
level.
a discussion yesterday at a bar association meeting, basically for lawyers, judges. Like I'm a member of it, but also like they asked me to speak, and pretty much I was talking about like goal setting for success and how to create this work life balance, because I don't bring work home with me. I don't work after hours. Like I get that there are exceptions, but that's not the rule. Like I create a schedule to where I get my work done at work and during work. And so like even with speaking with them and having that conversation with them, like you said, everybody needs it. And so in being able to be on different platforms and speak different ways, I can just craft it to where I understand these struggles, because as an attorney, I understand the struggles you likely are facing, so I can speak about it from that angle. And just figuring out what that looks like in their arena.
Right, right. That is great. Like, yeah, I wish I had you a few years ago, girl, because I was a mess. Because I am from the legal space as well. I still work in the legal industry, but
Okay.
I manage like administrative staff. It's called, well, they used to call them information processing specialists. I don't know how long you've been in there, but every firm doesn't have those centers or whatever. So I would manage like basically night secretaries, right? But we were like tech plus secretary put into one. And being on call 24/7, because lawyers are always working. I was on call 24/7. When I tell you, like, it drained me, it drained me. Like, people calling you at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, I need somebody in the center so they can get this motion ready because I got to send it to court by 5 a.m. Like, what? You didn't know this yesterday? Like,
You could have told us at 5 o'clock. I need it right before 5 in the morning. Get the
right.
order.
Like, geez. So, yeah, I definitely could have used you. So, I think you will be beneficial in so many spaces. So, keep going and keep doing what you're doing. But can you let the people know like what exciting things you have coming up? Like got some webinars, what you got coming up that people can get with you and work with you?
So, like I said, I got the book. It's done. It's in editing. I actually meet with her next week. I made a planner. That's in the final stages of editing. I'm this year. My goal is to do like a monthly, kind of like a webinar, but kind of like a training, like kind of using the thing that I've been kind of talking about in my content for each month, like doing just like a quick, like 30-minute live or so on it, like within my Facebook group. So for this week, for this month, it should be next Saturday, the 27th. So basically, like the last Saturday of each month, I intend to like go live in my Facebook group and pretty much just talk about this topic, answer any questions, and kind of just go from there in terms of that. So those are, I guess, like the three like specific things. And then other than that, just my coaching.
Okay, okay. Well, that's still good. So yeah. Oh, do you have a name for the book?
Yes, it is. Where am I?
Can we get today?
Yes, it's Lee's Laws of. Wait, Lord, I just forgot the name of the book. Lee's Laws of Productivity. Lee's
Okay.
Laws. It's what?
It's okay.
Yeah, I think it's Lee's Laws of Productivity. I know it's Lee's Laws, but I'm like, is it something after that? Yes. So I had to bring people into it and all of that. So yeah.
Okay. So yes, Lee's laws of productivity. So you guys be on the lookout for that. And where can they find you online if they want to
Everything
follow
is
you?
legally.me. LEGALLEE.me, because I'm Coach Lee. I got to keep my criminal clients from finding me, so we're not going by the real name. Even the book is being published under Coach Lee. So I'm legally .me everywhere. That's my website, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Clubhouse, all the things, LinkedIn, like everything is legally.me.
Okay. Great. And if anybody is watching this right now and they're afraid to have a 9 to 5 and get into like, creating a business for themselves, what would you say to them?
Why not? Like I said, I have no plans of leaving my job. My job might have plans of leaving me. Like I think if the pandemic showed us nothing else, is that we might not be as needed as we think we are in some of these
We're
fields.
replaceable for sure.
Right. the invention of Chat GPT, like, why not? Like, even if it's truly just a side project, a passion project, like, turn your passions into income. The things that you do effortlessly, why not make money doing it? Your friends and family come to you and ask you to do fill in the blank thing all the time. Why not just see if you can make a little money doing it? Whether that's money to go travel with, money for gas, the price of groceries going up. Like, we can never have enough money. Like, you might not need it, but having a cushion don't never hurt nobody.
Okay. Additional streams, additional streams, additional streams. That's what I preach to everybody, because
generational wealth.
Okay. Yes.
About the models of like generational wealth.
Yeah. And I try to tell people, like, even being a VA, people often frown upon the help, right? But if you can create an additional $4,000 a month for your family, and you like being in an executive VA or executive admin at your job, why not create that additional money for your family? And you are an expert in what you're doing. So people look at you as such. Like, everybody can't do that, and everybody doesn't want to do that. So don't be afraid to really follow your true passion, right? You don't have to be this great big titled person, right? Do what God has called you to do, and you're going to succeed and be successful in that. So I love that you said that. Why not? Right? Why not? So I thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation. I know it's going to help so many people in the online space and in corporate. And so I would love to have you back in a couple years or a couple months if you got anything new coming up, and have another chat, because this is something that is ongoing for everybody, right? As life changes, you have to reposition yourself and, readjust how you can be productive and get the most out of your days. So thank you so much.
Thank you.